Hey everyone, I'm Larae. I want to come on and talk to you guys to answer some various questions that I've been getting regarding medical laboratory school. This is my second Q&A. So if you missed the first one, I did a Q&A back in January. I'll link it above. Please go check it out. I am now in my last semester of my program, so I feel like I have a little bit more knowledge under my belt to give y'all some tidbits and advice from my perspective as a student. If you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can do so on Instagram at Larae, or feel free to comment on any of my videos. So let's get straight into it. What resources have you used in medical laboratory school? I'm gonna show y'all the resources I've referenced the most since I began school. My first resource is MLS Review Cards by Polanski. 10 out of 10, highly recommend resource. These things right here, these are my absolute favorite things that I'm going to talk about today. There are these little cards that showcase what you generally need to know in each department of the medical laboratory. And you can tell that I've gotten my use out of these things. I have sticky notes all throughout them. Like right now, I'm in clinicals for microbiology. So these cards right here are literally attached to my hip when I go to clinicals every single day. And it goes over things like the medias and the stains, like how to identify microbes, their importance, like the infections they cause. And it's just a big stack of cards. Like each section is specific to each medical laboratory department, like hematology, chemistry, I don't know if you can see that, but hematology right here, chemistry, molecular diagnostics, laboratory operations, urinalysis and body fluids, immunohematology, like they're all here in this big stack of cards. I've been whipping them out since the first week of my program. Like you can even go back to my first week vlog to see this. Again, they are very helpful if you like having a quick reference to review and jog your memory. My next resource is Heme Notes, Mini Pocket Atlas of Cell Morphology. This right here, I don't know who the target audience is, but I'm sure they have medical laboratory professionals in mind, because I don't see any other profession needing to go so in-depth on cell morphologies besides like a pathologist and care providers. But there's not enough clinical information to make it helpful for most care providers anyway. So let me show y'all. There's a whole page just on how to make a slide. And let me tell you, that is an art in itself. And it also tells you like how to perform a cell differential, like what power to look at the cells on and stuff. There's also cell lines and maturity, like erythropoiesis, leukopoiesis, and any disorders that correlate to that. They're all in here. And there's also abnormal disorders, like with the red blood cell, quantitative disorders from the white blood cells, and qualitative disorders from the white blood cells, malignancies like cancers, and platelet disorders. Like it's all in here. Everything that I touched on in the hematology lecture course is in this book. And there's also reference ranges on the back. Like it's a whole section of just reference ranges. And then there's also a ruler if you needed it. So again, I got this off of Amazon for $27, I think. I didn't even tell you the price of the MLS review cards. I think I paid $40 for these. I don't know the current price, but I'm gonna link everything all in the description box below. All in all, this book is very, very, very helpful for hematology. I literally had this attached to my hips over the summer. And it was an awesome guide when I was reviewing slides and learning how to interpret what I saw under the microscope. The next resource that I'm going to show you is helpful for hematology, especially the lecture course and skills lab when you are first learning the blood cell morphologies of immature cell lines. It is an Android and iOS app for free. I have it on my Google Pixel. It's really good reference photos when you are learning under the microscope, especially if you're looking at nuclei and chromatin formations like on the leukocytes. So if we looked at the myeloblast, it gives, I don't know if you can even see this, but it can give you all the characteristics that you would see if you were looking for that cell under the microscope. And it's free, like go download it. There's also quizzes for you to take, and you can tell it how many questions you want to do, and it'll grade you and show you like what you're deficient in and stuff like that when you want to test over the blood cells. Because there was definitely blood pictures on my exams when I took the class, and when I was in the clinical practicum, I still was taking exams, and there's blood pictures all over it. Even when I'm practicing for my ASCP exam, there's blood pictures everywhere. It's definitely important to get to know these blood pictures and what you're looking for in the normal and abnormal cells, and how to differentiate things when you're looking at it under the microscope. And that takes a while to practice, so that app was very helpful when you are just beginning in hematology. So the next resource I'm going to show you is the MLS Review Book by Har. So I am actually renting this book on Amazon, but I have the digital copy on my iPad. But I have used this book as a tool to quiz myself and determine what my gaps in knowledge are, so that I can go back and correct what I misunderstood or just relearn concepts as I study. It's a question bank book, but it gives you really good explanations as to why something is right or why something is wrong. And then it tells you what concept that you need to go remediate on if you got that question wrong. Again, like, it goes over all the content that you would expect to see on the ASCP exam. Again, it's a really helpful tool for getting ready for ASCP. The next thing I'm going to show you is the ASCP BOC study guide. This is what I consider the OG when it comes to learning how to get in the right test-taking mindset for medical laboratory school. I have found this book so helpful for learning how to answer and solve for questions in med lab school. Another great resource is Media Lab, which is an online test-taking simulator. I don't really know how much it costs because my school gave me and my cohort access for free, but stay tuned for my future opinion on if that specific resource will be helpful for when I take my board examination. Okay, so let's get into the rest of this Q&A. The next question, what GPA do you need to apply to programs? Is there a minimum GPA to maintain? And what is your current GPA? So GPA is important for like competitive selection, which is the case for most, if not all, healthcare programs. I assume the minimum GPA is typically a 3.0. I think I had a 3.4 overall and a 3.8 science GPA roughly. But once you get in, it really all depends on what your program has set in place for a minimum GPA. Like mine's, I think the minimum is like a 75% to maintain. I don't know, I don't really pay attention to that, honestly. I feel like as long as you understand the information, you don't necessarily need to focus on grades so much. Unless you just don't know what is going on at all, like you don't know what the fuck going on, and you're failing every exam, then be worried about your GPA. But if you can keep up with the mass amount of information and stay on top of your studying, you shouldn't have to worry too much. Because grades ain't everything. There's all these other factors that come into play as a med lab student, and GPA is minor in the bigger picture in my head. So as long as you are trying and making the effort to learn and staying motivated, the grades will come. Worry more about making sure you understand this stuff and worry less about GPA. Because like honestly, like I cannot imagine a hiring manager being like, oh, they got a 74% in hematology, we can't hire them. One, because you probably need at least a 75% to continue on in your program anyway. But I feel like they more so would say, oh, they didn't pass their board exam, they probably can't hire you then because you're not certified to work. So do you get the point I'm trying to make? Like, focus on understanding this stuff to pass the board exam and to keep up with the quality of your work for your future patients. I guess the grades are important, like if you plan on going back to school, if that's what you want to do. With that being said, I'm currently maintaining a 4.0 as of now, more so because I plan on going to grad school and they'll evaluate me off of my grades again. So I'm of course motivated to do well so that I can be competitive again when the time comes. Can you work in medical laboratory school? How are you paying for school? Every person is different with their circumstances and finances and all that. So it honestly depends on how you handle stress in relation to your course load, as well as your job. There are potentially opportunities to work as a lab assistant so that you have the opportunity to get more medical laboratory experience. You'd possibly be working like specimen collection or processing. It's a great way to get your foot in the door for medical laboratory positions in the future. But as far as working, like I began working 50-hour weeks, which was doable for me because we was in lockdown. The entire country was shut down and I was working from home this time last year. So I was able to do my classes and work from home overtime until I was required to resume in-person labs. For almost 6 months, I worked 50 to 60-hour weeks while maintaining my full course load. I still work. I did around 20 hours a week once everything was back in person because I had to be in class the majority of the week. Now that I'm in clinicals, it's hard for me to work because I'm in the hospital all day, every day. All day, every day. And because of my job's hours, they don't work with the hours that I have to be in the hospital for clinicals. So it's hard for me to do a lot now. I work a whopping 10 hours a week. So if you are looking to work, it literally all boils down to your class schedule and how flexible you can work around it and how much time you leave to study. Because you know, if you're going to be working all day, you're going to be in class all day, you're not going to have time to study. You're there to learn in this program so that you can get a job in the medical laboratory field. So prioritization is key as well. But you got to do what you got to do. And for me, my bills and tuition wasn't going to pay themselves. So I'm not in a position to just not work at all at this point. I did get a few scholarships for some of my semesters. So if your school offers it or hospitals nearby offer, like apply to that free money. That could be a whole $500 or $1,000 check, whatever. And that goes a long way when you need to pay tuition, you need to pay fees, books, uniforms, gas to get back and forth, and whatever else surprise life may throw at you. So apply for that free money. What's the hardest part of medical laboratory school? I think the hardest part for me is not second guessing, but I think that's just me and life in general. Like, it's not specific to medical laboratory school. But in clinicals, like, I spend time having to reassure myself that I know this information, I know what to do, and I know the steps to take if something goes wrong. Very vague. I'm not gonna go in depth on situations, but it makes sense eventually. And I think what stresses me out the most is feeling like I'm not prepared for situations. Even though for the most of the things that I've experienced so far, I've been as prepared as I was ever gonna be. So it's just a thing of confidence and me just searching to know more information than I need to know at that given moment. Another thing is that when things go wrong, like, I find myself thinking of the worst and the most detrimental thing, like consequences for when things go wrong, and thinking just way too deep when the solution ends up being really, really simple. All very vague, but it just makes sense without me having to go too in depth on things. So how did you find out about medical laboratory school? Why did you choose a medical laboratory career over nursing or other healthcare careers? I'm not answering these right now. Stay tuned for my next Q&A that I will hopefully be able to make in the next few months after I finish school. Besides those type of questions, everything else y'all ask me are pertaining to the job. And I'm not going to answer those either since I'm only a student. I'm not working in the field yet. So only a few more months and I'll be graduating, so stay tuned for that in that future Q&A. I do hope that this video helps to answer some questions that it seems like people were just asking me over and over again. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to keep up with my journey in medical laboratory school. Thanks for watching.